Oh, you're good. You just had to wait right till we're recording, right?
That's yeah. Hey man.
It's all good. All right. So, Shane Farmer, thank you so much for jumping on here. So, those of you that don't know, though, if you've done CrossFit for more than a day, you've probably heard his name in Dark Horse Rowing. But if for those of you maybe they're new or just they haven't heard about you, if you want to just give like a quick kind of background, who you are, and like kind of how you got into rowing and how Dark Horse kind of became your your baby in your business.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Shane Farmer. I founded Dark Horse Rowing in 2015, but I've been coaching since 2010. I was a rower in college, switched over to CrossFit, competed in CrossFit, had a pretty successful 4-year run going to the CrossFit Games with Team Invictus for a long time. Loved it. And in the meantime, learned there was a lot of rowing being used, but people who were not rowers had no idea how to use the rowing machine. So I figured, hey, I had a unique skill set. I knew CrossFit, I understood it intimately, and I understood rowing intimately. And so I blended the two, started coaching, became a master instructor for Concept 2. I'm still a master instructor for them to this day. Started making videos out of necessity because teaching rowing is tough if you're not in front of the person. And so I decided to try and figure out how to do that. Videos seem to be the best solution for that. And here we are over a decade later, and I'm still coaching rowing. We now have the world's largest rowing YouTube channel and online programs. And I mean, I guess our programs is how you and I got connected to begin with.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's basically my life is rowing.
Yeah.
I'm still a rower as an athlete on the water. And yeah, that's kind of how we got to where I am now.
That's awesome. Yeah, you kind of mentioned it there. So me and Shane actually kind of knew each other for before this, and you were my wife was one of your clients actually, and when Dark Horse, I feel like she was pretty early on in Dark Horse, right? On the online side of things with Dark Horse, anyway.
We had had programs for a while, but she was in an early iteration of a new program we launched called Misogi or Crew Plus. I think it
Yeah.
was Misogi when she was there.
No, the
So
Masoji
yeah.
came while she was there at some point, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah. So it was, she was with for this like amazing, immersive, experiential online program that we had for several years. Just wound it down last year, actually.
That's awesome. And actually, it's fun, like kind of a plug for you. Like, I mean, it's the rowing's changed her life, honestly. Like, I mean, she's still huge into it. We just bought this gym a few months ago and she's finishing her doctorate, but she actually wants to go through the Concept 2 coaching course and do a little once or twice a week
Rowing club,
rowing.
baby.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Rowing club
exactly
at the
it. Yeah.
gym.
Yep. So she wants to do. I mean, if you remember, I'm sure you remember her. She's kind of wild. She wants to do like hip hop rowing in the evenings, a couple times a week.
Love it.
Yeah.
Dude, that sounds so up her alley.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
Enable that. Absolutely.
She has made me promise her though when she does it, I have to get like the speakers with the lights and like like
Yes.
strobe lights and all the things. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
you
Light
got it.
shows that are happening.
Yep.
I can see it. I can already picture it.
Yeah, so I think it'll go well. We're like right in the heart of downtown Raleigh. Like we have a pretty young core customer, so I think it'll go really, really well. But yeah,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
rowing
her
changed her
energy is
life.
the thing that will pack that course,
Yeah,
pack that class.
yeah, for sure. So, and she's still, and honestly, like she's as a like being a CrossFit coach and stuff now. Like if I have questions about rowing, it's either the Dark Horse channel, right, or I just go to I have my wife. She'll like tell, no, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. This is what Shane said, right? So
Perfect. That's
years
all I
later.
can ask for.
Yeah, awesome. So you kind of mentioned you did the videos and stuff. So did you start Dark Horse and then do the videos, or were you like kind of doing the videos on YouTube first, and then it's like I don't know, just make a company and monetize this, or like what was first, the chicken or the egg there?
Let's see. I guess timeline wise, they were pretty close to each other. I had been coaching under my name from 2011 till 2015. And
Okay.
it had just been kind of Shane Farmer under the Invictus umbrella.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that I had, before we started recording, I had opened a rowing studio in Houston with two other
Mhm.
guys. And so I had quit at Invictus full time because I just couldn't, I was traveling back and forth too much. And so I stopped at Invictus. So that was when it kind of went, okay, well, now Shane Farmer's kind of becoming the brand away from Invictus.
Yeah.
And I hadn't formalized things. I was still coaching. And the reason that all of it started to begin with was because I was teaching seminars. I was traveling around the world teaching the Concept 2 coaching seminar and as their master instructor. So I would be dropping into Raleigh. I'd be dropping into Shanghai, to
Yeah.
all over the world, teaching a one-day seminar to certify coaches for Concept 2. But inevitably, if you've ever been on the rowing machine, you know that like a 9-hour day is not enough to get you up to speed on this thing. It's like fire hose. There's just so much information that you can't remember it all. So a lot of people were coming back and asking how we could continue to work together. And I didn't have an answer at that time. And I would say, well, read my blog articles, because that was what we all did then. We were all writing blog
Yeah.
articles and doing inline pictures. And that was successful mildly, but it's tough to teach something that's such a high kinesthetic requirement like rowing is, with blog articles and pictures, and expected people to read it and understand it. And so I went searching for videos, and none really existed. Concept 2 had one video out that's still online to this day. It's great. It's like just a woman rowing out on a dock, and it's probably their most viewed video of all time, I would guess.
That's funny.
But I needed more. I needed to show drills. I needed to show things that I knew how to do, and I just wasn't finding them. So I started making videos about it. And that about coincided with starting Dark Horse. I think I started Dark Horse like January 1, 2016, formally. Like was when we formally filed our paperwork. And I want to say in April 2016, I started the YouTube channel. Yeah. So, it wasn't like one necessitated the other. It was the necessity of just needing a way to teach without being in person. So that was kind of what started it all. The business was because I wanted to start online programming, because a lot of people were asking for that. So I was looking for a way to deliver that. I was used to it at Invictus. And so now I wanted to do it on my own. And now I needed a place to house it. And so that was kind of where Dark Horse Run came from.
Nice.
Videos just happened to be simultaneous, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, you were kind of doing the online coaching thing before it was cool, really, right? Because like it seemed like when COVID hit, everyone was like, well, they were forced to, right?
Yeah, we got to figure out online coaching.
Yeah, and then it like never went away after that, I feel like. So
we were in the low tech era of online coaching.
Yeah.
Very few people were doing that then. You were always just finding a coach locally, and Invictus taught me that.
Mhm.
They had a huge online coaching clientele, and we were, to this day though, I still use the same structure, which is Google spreadsheets. It's the easiest way to do it. You don't have to overcomplicate things.
That's true.
As long as you have a client who understands good programming, because good programming is good programming. You just need a way to write it up for them in the way that you need to. And then you need their results in response. And we still use that with our private coaching clients today, is we use Google spreadsheets, because, there are fancier ways of doing it, but you're just overcomplicating things by paying for a software when, sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah, no, that's true. And, it's funny too, because I have like my one-on-one clients as well, pretty much all in person. And I'm getting hit up all the time by some SaaS company in the fitness industry that's like, hey, you know what, I use Coach RX or whatever for that side of things, and it's like there's always new ones, and it's just, I don't know. Same thing. They need to be able to see what I program for them, put in the results, and like track progress. That's really all it is, and that's why I've just been with the same thing. I've never switched. So
yeah, as long as it works, Like
right.
The one thing that we can't do with Google spreadsheets is show or really like track progress.
Yeah.
You have to like, walk back to your old spreadsheets and go, oh yeah, that was what I was squatting then. This is what I'm squatting now. Oh yeah, I see an improvement, but it doesn't look pretty,
Right.
That's what a software does for you, I guess.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things, because like I do in person, and so like I don't need a chat feature at all, really, but like that is nice to be able to like track over 6 months, like, oh look, your bench press did this, right, or whatever it is. Awesome. So why the name? I think I remember Kelly telling me about this, but the name Dark Horse, how did that come about?
Man, it was just like a story of my life, honestly. I've always felt like a dark horse. I wasn't a star athlete growing up. I loved sports, but I rode the bench in everything that I did. And I was never a starter, but I would give up everything to be an athlete. And that was always really important to me. But I never really had the attention of the head coach, or I never had, nobody was ever singling me out like, that dude's going to thrive. I wasn't getting offers to go play sports in college. None of that existed for me. And so I always felt like, it took me till college to figure out that if I wanted to make something happen, I was going to have to do it, and there was nobody's going to be there. gotta save yourself kind of thing. And I just experienced it in so many different ways when I got to college. My first college I went because they accepted anybody with a pulse. It's a fantastic school. I loved it. Western State College of Colorado. I'm not speaking ill of the school. But as far as grades wise, I really need good grades and I didn't have good grades. And so I went with no real plan. I thought I was going to be a ski instructor the rest of my life. I grew up skiing and I was a kid's ski instructor in high school. And I loved it. I loved skiing. I was racing slalom. That was a big part of my life. I was spending easily 100 plus days on the slopes each year. And so I thought that was my trajectory. I was going to Western State College of Colorado in the mountains of Colorado next to Crested Butte. And I was going to get a recreation degree, which is a degree at this school, get a recreation degree. And I would go be a ski bum or a ski instructor and like just live that life, which probably would have been great as well.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah, so still sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And I got there, and all of a sudden, two things happened. I ended up joining the club baseball team, which I had quit baseball after my sophomore year to join track because I was so slow. I was such a slow runner that I figured, well, if my coaches won't look, they wouldn't give me a look because I was so slow in baseball that I wasn't getting any play time. So I was like, well, let me do something to force myself out of my comfort zone, join track. Terrifying. And so I hadn't played ball in 2 years, but I loved baseball. And here I am in the mountains of Colorado, and I walk by the club, club fair day one of school, and there's club baseball. And I was like, that'd be fun to play again. And so I had my dad send my baseball gear out, and I got sucked in. And all of a sudden I was like in on club baseball for the whole 2 years that I was there. And then at the same time, I found kinesiology. And that really, for the first time in my life as a student, sparked, as Marie Kondo would say, sparked joy for me.
Yeah.
And I was like enthralled. All of a sudden, I was like, whoa, you can learn about the human body and like fitness from the not athlete side, but like I could learn about why the body does what it does and about energy systems. And like that was really fascinating to me. So all of a sudden, I found something that piqued my interest school-wise, education-wise, and I started playing club baseball. And I didn't have time to ski because I was playing baseball year-round. And during the winters, we were like playing in indoor barns, arenas, horse arenas. We would like have to rent space from horse arenas just for like a heated indoor space because we were in the mountains, like 7,500 feet of altitude, surrounded by ranch country. And so we were, like playing all through the winter indoors, playing on like rubber ground. It was brutal. And then in the spring, we built our own baseball field, like totally Field of Dreams type stuff. It was really cool. And then I started loving school. And all of a sudden, my grades went from a 2.5 GPA in high school to a 3.8 in college. I was like, what is happening right now? My life was just like turning all about, but nobody was doing it for me. It was me being like, oh, if I want to take on student loans, I better figure out what I'm doing and make something out of this experience. And nobody's going to force me to do it. So I got to figure it out for myself. So I know this is a long story, but your point being to like, where does the Dark Horse name came from? I always felt like an underdog. It wasn't that I didn't have support at home. And when I was younger, I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, some kind of fire got lit in me in college. And then it kept snowballing from there. But I still was never like, oh, wow, that's his thing. He's a natural at that. And then I found rowing. I transferred schools after my sophomore year because my grades had gotten good enough. And I was like, well, I wanted to go to California for school. And I found the University of San Diego and they accepted me at the last minute. I was waitlisted and all of a sudden just like spot opened up. And I was like, I'm going. Sold everything that didn't fit in my car and drove out west. And I remember thinking as I was driving there, like, please let me find a thing that I'm a natural at. For the first time in my life, just let me find something that clicks for me. And I thought I was going to go play baseball. They were like D2, D1 baseball. There's no way I was walking on there. Yeah. And the guy across the hall from me had been pulled into row and he was like, you're tall and lanky. You should give this thing a try. I tried it. And within 6 months, I was like in love, never looked back. And then through the next 4 years, I stayed there for 4 years. And that's another story about why I stayed in college so long. But we went to the national championships. But along that way, even our coach didn't believe in us because we were a very small program with no history of success prior to us, except for like one small stint in the 80s. And we really wanted to go to the national championships. Our coach didn't even believe in us. And so we had to do it for ourselves as a team. And so we did it. And we went to the national championships and it was like, and then CrossFit. And then I was too tall to be a good CrossFitter, right? I'm 6'3" and I was too skinny because I was a rower. So I was like emaciated from the waist up and I was just all lungs and legs. but that meant that nobody could beat me in an endurance workout. Nobody.
Yep.
There wasn't a single person that could beat me. So I was like, well, I got the endurance piece. I have to learn how to be strong now. But the pushback kept coming.
Yeah.
CJ Martin, the owner of Invictus, was like, I don't know, kid. Like, you're pretty tall. Like Josh Bridges was, the best athlete that he had coached at that point. And if anybody's seen Josh Bridges,
Yeah,
like,
he's like my height. He's like 5'8" or something, I think.
yeah, I don't even know if he's 5'8".
Yeah.
Bridges he's a shorter dude. And so it was like this uphill battle for me. I had to put on weight. I had to figure out how to get strong. I had to, all these things. So all of that became a piece of my who I was. And I very much believed in this underdog thing. Like if it's gonna happen, it's gotta be up to me because I can't expect someone else to do it for me. And then as I became a coach, I really learned to love working with quote unquote underdogs, people who hadn't moved for years and who were just coming back to movement from sedentary, who had pre-existing conditions that they were working within. They had anatomical differences that needed figuring out. Weight loss clients. Like I loved the people that when for them learning to lunge was a heroic success for them. That was so satisfying and like gratifying to see that change in their lives versus when I would work with a Josh Bridges, to Josh, like I was 0.5% for him to get a little bit better at his rowing. I'm not improving his fitness. I'm just
Right.
helping him learn the movement a little bit better so that when he's in a situation where rowing shows up, he can thrive a little bit more. But that's much less gratifying than the person whose life changes because they can get to their hands and their knees to play with their kids and then get back up totally unassisted. Like you just changed a family's entire life, their
Yeah.
trajectory. The next 20 years for them means that their kids get to see them being more playful than they would have been prior. They're not scared to get onto the floor with their kids or their grandkids. So that became the person that I most valued working with, and I consider that person the underdog too. There's nobody takes a lot to step up when you're in that place in life and go, I'm willing to subject myself to something that's very uncomfortable, very different, and I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
That's hard for a lot of people to do. And so I always really respected that. Like, it's not easy to go, I haven't moved for 20 years. I am terrified of what lies in front of me.
Yeah.
And I don't have the answer. And so I'm trusting you to help me find the answer. And then it's like this beautiful partnership. You're like, cool, let's do it. Let's figure it out together. I'm not going to push you to places where you shouldn't go. And we're just going to like hand in hand this thing. So I guess it's a multifaceted answer that I probably took to
Yeah.
be way longer than you were probably
No,
looking for.
no,
But
no. It's good. And you touched on a lot of things there. And I love the fact that like working with they call it like the general population or whatever. And like, I think it's super cool because you were working with sort of like the top 0.1% of the sport, right? And like, it would be really, really easy to get sucked into that whole, like the sex appeal, so to speak, of like working with the best of the best, right? Like Team Invictus, all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, but like, this dude doesn't know how to squat and like has type 2 diabetes and all this other stuff, like I'm the same way. That's generally who I have like clients that have like advanced stage MS, like that I work with one-on-one and all this other stuff. And that's always way more fun than yeah, hey, your speed under the bar can be like a little bit quicker or whatever. Everything else is
yeah,
perfect, right?
exactly. Yeah. 0.25% difference,
Right, right. Working with honestly like someone that's better at snatching or whatever than I am, and I'm just like trying to like give the outside view. Whereas, like you said, like this person's just dropped 50 pounds. They got off their diabetes medication. Like all these other like health markers, right, are like have improved in their blood work, and like they probably added 10 years to their life, right? Like quality years at that, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think that's huge and yeah, way more satisfying. I think that's the one thing about being like an owner of a CrossFit gym and like CrossFit coach too, and like also doing one-on-one. It's hard because that name CrossFit has a stigma with it, and I'm like, it's not like we're not a competitive gym. That's not our thing, right? A lot of people are just like, no, I'm not doing that crazy shit that they're doing, right? Like, I'm like, no, you're not. I'm not gonna make you do that, but we can get you
No,
healthier, right? So
I wouldn't even let you if you wanted to.
right. Yeah. No, I'm not doing a lot of that.
Yeah, it's
So,
not the right thing for you right now.
right.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get like to break down that barrier and like kind of getting off on a tangent. Like we've honestly like considered like, do we de-affiliate just to get rid of that name, that stigma, right? Or nothing else would change for us. Like we're still going to help people, but like
Right.
maybe that
It doesn't
barrier,
change how you operate.
right? So I don't know, but
Yeah. That's, I think CrossFit as the whole is on the whole is dealing with that globally right now. Obviously, it's had so many ups and downs in the last 5 years. It's people who grew up, with the we saw this thing start and then we watched it grow and then we watched the passion for it grow, but we also watched the leadership problems that came
Yes.
along with it. And we all saw the infighting, we saw the poor management and leadership happening, and you just knew it wasn't going to change. Like we all had to know that this was where it ended up.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is where it had to end up. And not to take anything away from the methodology, it's valuable, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stuck with it. But I think we've all also learned a lot now. And unfortunately, because of, its time in the limelight, its exposure to the sun, meaning everybody wanted to come in and have a take and an opinion and take their shots at the thing that at one point was the biggest thing in fitness.
Right.
It understandably took a lot of attacks, which, certainly put out a lot of question in people's minds who don't thrive in that space already and aren't sure, do I dip my toe in? Do I not?
Right.
10 years ago, yeah, you dip your toe in because you're like, oh, it's fun. It's cool. My friends are doing it. Everybody's trying it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's like, ooh, I've been hearing some really questionable stuff about this. Like, what do I do? And you're like, well, listen, it's not about that. We're not this.
Yeah.
We're this. We just happen to have the name attached to it. So I don't envy your discussion you have to have about that.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I think what's the good thing is like within the space, there's some new things up and coming. World Fitness Project's one of them, right? I mean, like some other aspects of like the fitness that it's not just CrossFit anymore, I guess is my point, right? And so like, yeah, I don't know. We're like, yeah, I'm kind of getting off on a topic and a tangent here, but it'll be the next couple of years will be interesting to kind of see what happens and what we decide as a gym and as a community and all that going. What I do want to get back on the topic about though, with like the coaching and stuff and, rowing, I think a lot within CrossFit is, and most CrossFit coaches, like you drop into like a box, like a lot of CrossFit coaches don't really understand the machine either, right? Especially if they're like newer or whatever. So like what's like one or I don't know, 1 to 3 cues or things for like a CrossFit level 1 coach, right? Doesn't have a ton of experience maybe, that they can just like look at a class and be like, all right, that's okay. But like this one thing, this is like, what's an easy cue or an improvement that they can look at when they got like a 20-person class, right? And everyone's on the rower and they don't have a ton of experience with the rower. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. So my number one here is going to be a gripe first. I'm going to start with a gripe and then I'm going to go to productive, useful stuff. The gripe is, don't try to coach a thing you don't understand and claim that you understand it to the clients.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to hear about CrossFit coaches who, and plenty of other coaches, Five, Orange Theory, any group fitness methodology that uses rowing. Don't just make up a thing because you think it's true. Like I've had to undo so much of that coaching. Like, well, my CrossFit coach told me to put it up to a 10 because I get more calories per stroke. And you're like,
yeah. Yes.
Wow, that's demonstrably false.
Right.
And so it's like, don't call it horizontal deadlifting because it's not. Are there concepts from deadlifting that we can take? Sure. But that's like me. If I were just a rowing coach and I didn't have thousands of hours of strength and conditioning coaching enough to confidently coach Olympic weightlifting as well as I can coach rowing.
Yeah.
That's like me being an only rowing coach or a rowing coach coming into a CrossFit gym and calling a deadlift a vertical row. Like,
right.
Like every CrossFit coach would, can I swear on this? Should we swear?
Yeah, oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Every CrossFit coach, if they heard a rowing coach call it a vertical row for a deadlift, would shit their pants. It'd be like, wow, it's not a vertical, so I guess that's my point is like, don't speak about what you don't know, educate yourself about what you don't know so that you can be a better coach for people. It's okay as a coach to admit, you know what? I don't know this thing well enough. I'm going to go do my research so that I can come back to you with better information. It's okay to say that. In fact, we should show our fallibility as coaches because it means that we have an openness to learn. And you should want that out of your coach. A coach who's like, you know what? I don't have all the answers. And hey, by the way, I used to teach this thing. I changed my mind. The more that I've seen and the more that I've heard and the more that I've researched, I've realized that wasn't a good thing. And every client should be like, wow, how honest of you.
Right.
That's cool. I never expected you to be perfect, but now you're saying it. Like, I appreciate that because now I can follow you on your journey with growth as a coach.
Yeah.
So there's my gripe. Now, onto the thing you actually asked. What's something that you can use as a coach? First off, please don't have people set their damper up to a 10. That's just an easy one in a group fitness setting. Set your damper setting somewhere between a 3 and 5. It's just like a decent range, you know? And honestly, at the end of the day, damper factor setting / drag factor is not the magic pill that people think it is. It doesn't have that big of an impact on your performance. Setting it between a 3 and a 5 is just kind of a starting place. It's like a placeholder until somebody gets good enough that it's worth it for them to start playing with, okay, what does drag factor mean? Why should I use it in certain scenarios? It's not worth the discussion because it's way more confusing to everybody other than me
Yeah.
and whoever I'm talking with than, so ignore it. Just basically ignore drag factor, damper setting. Just put it between a 3 and a 5. That's a good starting place. And that one, it doesn't take any time. It's just like, class, put your damper setting to a 4 and just done. And when people are like, but wait, I don't, just be like, nope. I'll find you some videos.
Yeah.
I'll find you some videos, and I will, if you have further questions, I'll send you questions. I'll send you these videos after class for you to start digesting and learning it. But we're not doing that right now. Everybody just set it on a 4. I promise you it's not as big of an impact as you think. Number 2 is teaching people how to get into the catch position. And the reason I like this one is because it's static, not dynamic, the way that I teach it. And the easiest thing for a coach who doesn't understand the movement, it's kind of like teaching the setup position of a barbell.
Mm-hmm.
It allows the athlete to be in a static position. So you as the coach have more time to assess visually, because if you don't know the movement in the midst of the global movement, your eye isn't trained enough to spot where the error occurred. If you don't know Olympic weightlifting and you watch a snatch, it's your first time watching Olympic weightlifting, you watch snatch, you're like, where was the error?
Right. Yeah.
Your eye, your brain can't process, it can't slow it down. Like when you're a great Olympic weightlifting coach, you watch a snatch and in your brain, that thing was slow motion. You're like, yeah, I saw the moment at which that bar started to travel back. That was the correct movement pattern. But, oh, hey, they banged half an inch too early off of their thigh. That sent the barbell out front. That means that barbell cascaded back. It's why you're losing the bar behind every single time. And you're getting a 1/4 inch jump forward. Like you can't do that until you've watched enough reps. And so teaching a setup is a great way to create a static position for a coach to see. So I like to teach the catch in a static environment because it allows the coach and the athlete to just focus on the thing. So the way that I teach it is just in a joint checklist, starting at the hands, walking down to the feet. And so that for a coach, that's very easy to remember because you're just going to stare at the person. You're going to call out every joint as you see it. So all you have to know is what does an ideal catch position look like? And so what it looks like is wrist neutral, elbow extended, shoulder reaching, shoulder down so that the lat is engaged. And then you want to give people like the cue of like relaxed head and neck because you don't want those shoulders shrugged up and a tight neck. But, we can all see like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is what people love to do to take off on the stroke. So you want this relaxed head and neck, shoulder reaching, lat engaged. I'm just walking joints down right now. I go to spine. I want my spine nice and neutral. I don't want overextended, but I also don't want this kyphotic rounded back. Then I want that trunk at a forward angle of some kind. I just don't want it at 12, which means that seat is going to naturally be separated from the heels. Okay, so that puts some space between the seat and the heels, which is really important to teach. But again, we're not talking about dynamic movement yet. We're just talking about the static position. So you're going to see a forward angle. Then you want the knees. So we've talked spine, hips. The hips are behind the shoulders. Creates a forward angle. Now I want knees, my next joint down, tracking underneath the arms, maybe slightly inside, but definitely not outside the arms, right? Easy cue to see. Are the legs splaying out too wide? A lot of people do that to try and take a longer stroke. Then you want heels down for teaching purposes. In time, the answer is yes, we do let the heels lift, but once somebody's learned the stroke.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
Kelly gets me on that all the time because she's like sidebar. She's in class or whatever. She's like all our coaches now know. Just leave her alone on the rower. But because if she drops in somewhere, they'll be like, keep your heels down. And like Kelly does know enough now. Like for her, she doesn't need to or whatever. And like, yeah. Totally different topic, but yeah, it's just funny.
No, I mean, the video I filmed yesterday for the YouTube channel was solely about heels down versus heels up. So it's very timely, actually. Yeah. It'll probably come out next week or the week after. So yeah, heels down to learn because it teaches you how to push through the whole foot. Eventually, we allow a little bit of heel lift because that lets you get a little bit deeper into the catch, but not until you know what you're doing. Otherwise, it creates so many errors that you can't keep up. So heels down. And then the last thing you do once you've because that's easy, right? I can go through an anatomical checklist even if I don't know the movement pattern.
Yeah.
I can look at a static picture of a human and go, oh, okay, hold on. Push your hips back a little bit. Good. Give me a little bit broader chest. Okay, nice. I like that. That's more neutral for me. You know, again, not crazy erect, also not rounded. Hey, drop your shoulders a little bit. Everybody wiggle your head for me. Okay, cool. We got relaxed head and neck. Yeah. And, you know, coach can walk along, be like tapping traps, be like, oh, you're a little too tight. Relax. Drop those shoulders down. You can tap lats and be like, there, come on, tighten your lats. Okay, good. Reach the shoulders for me. You know, like it gives you this easy moment to coach 20 people easily.
Right.
And also, they're just getting time under tension there. They're just sitting there. It's like when Coach Bergner loves to put people in the setup position and then just leave them there for like 3 minutes while he walks around. He's like, do not stand up.
Yeah.
Legs are shaking and
Yeah.
everybody's trying to hold that. It's the same thing. It's exactly that, but on the rowing machine. And then the final thing that I have people do is I go, okay, without any of those things changing, meaning knees don't splay, back doesn't round, elbows don't bend, hips don't change, like a trunk angle doesn't change. I want you to compress the system as much as possible. Get as tight to the front as you possibly can. And then you reinforce, hey, every time you take a stroke, you should feel this moment of tension for a split second when you get there. If you don't feel this tension, that means that you're giving up some position and it's creating an energy leak. And you wonder why rowing is this black hole of energy. It's because right as you're about to take the stroke every time, you let your position go. And then you're trying to drive power through the machine from your feet to the handle, but you can't because somewhere in your body, mechanically, you're deviating and giving up the tension that you need to relay power to the handle.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think that is good. I think honestly, maybe our next coaches development meeting, we talk about that. Cause like if you can get everyone just to do that one thing for the day in class, they're 1% better on the machine. And like, you didn't go like way outside of your scope of knowledge, right? Like, you know, you just got them set up. Yeah. I love that.
And then as a coach as well, from a coach development standpoint, I only have to look for one thing. All I'm assessing that entire class is, are they deviating from the position that we were working on at the beginning? And now my callback cues are all simply to the thing that I can handle because I don't have to see it in its global movement pattern. I can see it in a snapshot. Each stroke, did the seat smack into the heels? Did they give up posture? Did they break the arms? If they're breaking the arms, you're like, hey, did we have broken elbows when we were sitting at that catch position? Oh, that arm was straight because the first part of the movement is just pushing through the legs.
Yep.
So if you're breaking through your arms, you're making that your first movement, not the legs. Let those arms hang. You know, it gives you a better place to coach from, a better place to evaluate from, because you as a coach only have to think about one thing. Clients only have to think about one thing. And we're not teaching legs, body, arms, body, legs. That's already too much for most people.
Yep.
You've just melted their brains. They can't think about 6 different kinesthetic movement patterns in organization in the midst of a workout. You're just not going to get that from them.
Yeah. That's why, yeah. I mean, it is just like Olympic lifting in that sense, right? Like, and it's actually one of my gripes with CrossFit. And like, you're going to take this incredibly complex thing that an entire sport is built around. And like, all right, you had your little 3 foundations classes or whatever. And now look, we're doing a snatch progression. And it's like, shit, man, I don't know. Let's maybe do that. If you want to work on that, like we can do it one-on-one or something. But like, that's a whole nother tangent I have about like these highly, highly technical, very, very complex movements. And you're trying to like template it out across 20 people that have never even touched a barbell before.
Yeah. That's, it's why the Bergner warm-up gets so much credit.
Yeah.
Is because it tries to ingrain movement patterns with a PVC pipe that takes intensity out of the equation and is not just warming you up to go into the midst of a workout, right? Nobody ever improved at a skill in the middle of a triplet.
Right.
You just don't. You can't. You're being told to go. Everything has to be done for time or for reps.
Right.
How are you supposed to improve at a skill if that's the only time you ever see the thing? And I guess that's the thing with rowing. Rowing often just gets shoved to the side because a coach goes, that's a lot of skill for me to focus on. And I know nobody's going to get hurt on this thing. So I'm just going to put it in placeholder as a suck factor inside of this workout. I've got a triplet. I have 2 complex movements. I just need to add 1 suck factor so that I can get their heart rate skyrocketing. And so your options are assault bike, jump rope of some kind, single, double. I don't know what gyms are doing, triples, crossovers, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Rowing, ski erg, bike erg, run.
Right. Yeah.
That they're all held as a placeholder for suck.
Yep.
For the most part, I see very few CrossFit gyms that are like, you know what? it's endurance day. We're doing 2x25 on the erg.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Zone 2, low intensity, 2x25. Guess what? That is absolutely a form of fitness.
Yeah.
But people don't want to do it because if they threw that up on their main site or announced that the day ahead of time, nobody would show up to class.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because our head coach does our programming here. She does an awesome job. And so today, Wednesday, actually is like our cardio day. And like a lot of times it is like a zone 2 thing. I think like 2 people showed up to the noon class today. And like Wednesday is like our lowest census day, right? Of like showing up. But I'm trying to like, I don't know. It's just, but it's necessary, right? Like, yeah, they might not like it, but like you need it. And I mean, I do it with my one-on-one clients. Like, well, it may not be the rower, maybe something else, but like, hey, listen, we're gonna do this sort of like conditioning, like 30 minutes. Just it's kind of boring, but I'll tell you some jokes and whatever, and we'll make it not so bad because you need it, right? So
yeah, man. I think that's the argument for starting endurance clubs.
Yeah.
At gyms. It's a new offering, so it's kind of exciting for members and for coaches.
Yeah.
Because then the coach goes, hey, listen, I get to program an entire endurance path, right? I'm periodizing an entire endurance program. I don't have to just squeeze it in, these people. Then you go, hey, Tuesday, Thursday nights are our endurance nights. Who wants to come for an evening session? And then you find your devoted endurance group who get excited about it. They show up, they're like, yes, what's on the menu for today? Like, 25 minute skier, 2-minute rest, 25-minute row. Yuck. Cool. I'm in. Let's do it. So I do think that's just like you want to suss out who your devoted strength athletes are. You start a Oli club or a powerlifting club. You want to suss out your endurance athletes, start an endurance club. And not to mention, if you start a devoted endurance club, you might start pulling new members who are scared of CrossFit but want to dip their toe into an endurance club. So they're willing to come for the endurance, and then it becomes a gateway to trying the other classes and vice versa. And then you give greater exposure. Now you're developing the kind of athlete that you want to develop.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely I like that. We just got to get Kelly on board to do her row club in the evenings as soon as she graduates. Yeah. So are there any? I know there's a concept to like rowing certification. Right? It's like, are there any other resources? Like, so as a coach, right? Like, I'm like, no, I want this thing. Like, I think I see the value in it. I understand it's way more technical than an assault bike, right? Which is just whatever. What are some good resources for? I mean, there's your YouTube channel. That's probably a good place to start. But
I'd argue that the YouTube channel is Instagram is actually decent because it forces me to fit things into like quick punchy sound bites.
Yeah.
So you can like pick up some topics pretty well. Like we did this last week, I compared heels up versus heels down in an Instagram reel and I just stacked it one on top of the other, like spot the difference between the two.
Yep.
And people are like, I can barely see the difference. They're like, exactly. It doesn't make that much of a difference. And as long as your mechanics are down, one is great. I always put it as both are useful, but you got to start. You can't put the cart ahead of the horse, go to heels lifting. You got to start with heels down to learn how to develop power on the machine. And then with that, now you lift the heels. Another one I held a stroke rate 20, this is last week, stroke rate 20, and took my split from a 3-minute down to a 130 at a stroke rate 20. My stroke rate never changed.
Yeah.
But I dropped 10 seconds at a time on my split, and you watch it. And all you hear, the only thing that changes is the sound of the flywheel because I'm putting more force through it. And so it's concepts like that where you can send that to your gym members and go, it's not about rate. Rate is not how you necessarily go faster on this thing, right? So I say that because Instagram's good. It forces easy, quick coaching moments. Like YouTube is good because I go more into depth. I can film a 15-second reel about heels up versus heels down. And when I see a bunch of people are interested in that, well, guess what? I went and made a video about it yesterday that the people who are further interested will show up and go, okay, I wanted to know the explanation behind that. Here's the meat and potatoes of it. And then the academy, that's the crucible
right
event is going through that academy because you got to get your own mechanics right through that process. We really encourage you to spend the time on your own mechanics. I have because coaching is so important to me. I'm such a passionate developer of coaches from where I've come from and the environment that I was in at Invictus, where I was surrounded by world-class coaches and they taught me everything that I know. about how important real coaching is, how important coach development is. And so I take an entire chapter and dedicate it to improving coaching as a profession
Nice.
inside of that as well. Like, here is how you become a better coach, blanket coach, rowing, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, whatever it may be. And then we go into developing your eye for the movement, developing your toolbox of drills so that you know what drills to assess for what errors that you may see.
Hmm.
Here are all the common errors that people experience. Here's how you implement them. Here's how you program. And then at the end of it, you go for your certification, which is not easy. You have to
Right.
pass with the 90% or better, and it's a 10-minute film video.
Nice.
So it's not a pay to play environment. A lot of people come and they're like, well, I submitted the video. And you're like, yeah, but you scored a 70 out of 100. Like,
Yeah.
that's not passing. I'm not going to put the dark horse seal of approval on a 70 out of 100. Like, show me know what you're talking about. And the people that pass, I have every ounce of confidence that they can go out into the world and teach people, and they're going to do a great job.
That's awesome. That's yeah, that's good too, because there's I think there's too many certifications, all kind of silly ones out there now for coaching, right? And it's like, I mean, there's like open book one. I've seen all kind of stupid stuff, and I'm like, this isn't a thing. You're not.
Yeah. I mean, this is open book, but it's performance based.
Yeah,
So
that I've seen some bad ones out there, right? Like I could basically sign up for it, completely ignore any of their coursework,
all of it.
yeah, and just like go through it, right? And I don't know anything more than I did an hour before I did it. So
Correct. And I think a lot of people come into what we do and they just want to say that they're a Concept 2 certified coach. And you're like, no, 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 that this works. This is real to us. This is real. It's important that the people that are going out there and saying that they're coaches with this certificate are actual coaches. Again, I don't take that lightly. There's one other group and they do things their way. They don't come from the same background that I do. So we just approach things slightly differently. Same certification at the end with Concept 2, but it's just so important. And we give copious notes. You submit your 10-minute video, you're going to get 3 pages of notes back afterwards telling you exactly what you need to do to pass, because
yeah,
we want everybody to pass. It's just a lot of times it's like, hey, it's clear that you didn't actually practice this, or hey, what we're hearing back is you just parroting my own coaching back to me.
yeah,
That's not what I want.
right,
That means that you are good at memorizing.
right,
That doesn't mean that you're good at coaching it yet. What I need is to hear you coaching it in your own words, but it's clear that you're drawing from your knowledge. And
hmm,
that's a big difference, for somebody to mimic versus internalize. And what
yes,
we want to develop is people who've internalized the information, because now that's freedom of coaching. When I set that person free, I never need to check on them again. They can come back for refreshers to check in and we can have an intelligent discussion. But if it's just parroting, then you're like, you don't actually understand the why
right,
behind what you're telling people. So if somebody gets you with like an aha question, you're like, because.
yeah,
You're like, well, that's not a coach. A
right,
coach doesn't say because. A coach can sit there and maybe not eloquently, but can, pretty clearly explain what they're talking about. And if they have to stop and go, hold on, yes, I do know this, but let me help. Let me pull in some information that's going to help clarify what I'm trying to explain, because
right.
I'm stuck on my words or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. And I love that too, because with our own coach development here, we, like from running a class to the queuing and all the things, we give our coaches like this is exactly what you're graded on, right? It's not a surprise. So like the answers to the test, so to speak. But Zach, who my business partner, who's kind of heads up that more than I do, he's really, really big on each coach developing their own style though, right? Like,
Yeah.
because him and I worked together. We both coached at another gym before we went out on our own. And the owner was like, basically, he wanted little carbon copies of himself, right? And like to do everything like he did. And he's a good dude, but it was like, if it didn't do it the way he would have done it, then even though the end result was the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's super important, like to have that. And it also helps with like your clients and members too, because like, if every coach is exactly the same, like, I don't know, it's kind of boring, right? Like if I go to the 6 a.m. or the 6 p.m., 2 different coaches, and it's like, it's
It
so
doesn't
much.
feel genuine.
Yeah, it doesn't feel genuine, right? Exactly. So,
It's it's the difference between SOPs for tasks versus SOPs for skills,
yeah,
right? You can build all the SOPs you want in a gym environment, and you should, in fact, build tons of SOPs. Your
yeah,
gym environment should be like SOP to the hilt on task-based items. When is the gym cleaned? What
Right.
does clean look like? Who's signing off on the cleaning? Who opens? Who closes? How do they open? How do they close?
Right.
How do you welcome a member into the gym? What does that protocol look like? How do we pay our coaches? Task, items, SOP the snot out of those. But you can't SOP a personality. That's a
Right.
skill. You have to, you hire people for the purpose of their skill. You can teach them the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the message you need to deliver. But you got to let them, you got to let them fly at some point. You know, you can't just like SOP that person out of their own personality.
Right, right. And that's like, yeah, I think him and I both kind of say the same. Like, here's your left and right sort of limits or whatever. However you want to paint on that canvas, like, go nuts, dude.
Love
Like,
that.
that's your thing.
Great analogy.
Yeah. So, we'll kind of start wrapping things up here. I know I kind of kept going off on tangents. I think you kind of have a story. If I remember, I think it was you, because the rower was pretty pivotal. You had a really bad wreck, right, a few years ago. In fact, your wreck was like within weeks of Kelly, my wife's wreck.
Yes.
You guys were like in the hospital at the same time. You didn't know.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was shortly after that she kind of started messing with the rower before she found you and stuff too. But like, you want to like walk through that and like how it helped you kind of just with your recovery and just just keeping you active, even though like you're pretty hurt.
Yeah. So February 2020, right? As COVID became an actual national thing,
Mm-hmm.
I had a motorcycle accident. I was thrown from my bike at about 45 miles an hour, head hit a curb, collapsed lung, really bad TBI. Thankfully, nothing else other than that. I mean, thankfully, you know, the TBI, the gravity of that TBI was so much further reaching than I ever could have imagined. And the collapsed lung sucked too. That was not a fun experience. But thankfully, you know, broke no bones, had no road rash, and it all just, you know, happened in the blink of an eye. It was a very mundane riding accident. I got hit by a pedestrian, not the other way around. I literally got tackled off my bike by a pedestrian who was running to cross the road in the dark and didn't see me. And they hit my handlebars and ejected me off the left side of the bike.
Dang.
Yeah. And so I'm thankful that nothing more happened. I mean, my head hit the curb so hard that it cracked and buckled my helmet. So that saved my butt. But that was a long road to recovery because, you know, when it comes to collapsed lungs, that lung needs time to reinflate. I had a tube in my chest. Still looks like I have a third nipple to this day from the scar where the tube went in. And so I had a tube in my chest for a week, trying to get the pressure renormalized in my trunk or my chest cavity. And so your lungs stick to your rib cage. And that's how then once they're there, you create this intra pressure where the lung is pressurized and it keeps that inflation stuck up against the ribcage, and you want that. And when that deflates, it turns into like a floppy wet balloon. And they say, thankfully I never felt this, but they say that like if it recollapses, you may not even notice it, but all of a sudden you just have this sensation of like a wet balloon inside your chest cavity. Still makes me like want to vomit to this day thinking about it. And so my recovery was like, better be gentle. You know, like don't go too hard, too fast. That lung needs to rebuild its confidence, its strength, its ability to work. So for like a month, I think in a week they allowed me to like walk across the room. After a week out of the hospital, they were like, you can walk across the room. And then it was like you can basically extend your walking by like 100 meters a day or 100 meters a week after that. It's like 1 week at a time. First week, the second week, I was able to like walk to the end of the block and back with assistance. Week after that, I was able to walk like 200, 300 meters, 400 meters unassisted. And it was like very slow. And so my recovery became sitting on my biker in my garage.
Okay.
And I started live streaming because I was like, well, I got to the point after like 2 months or 3 months where it's like, okay, I can just sit on the bike for an hour. I can't do anything else, but I can at least get my body functions back and start getting blood circulation and oxygen moving through my body. And I'm not trying to breathe hard. I was like, I'm literally just moving my legs through space and time. Why don't I go live on YouTube? You know, I had a decent following at that time and I was like, well, I'll just talk to whoever shows up, you know? And that was the start of what Kelly ended up joining, was that the program that resulted because of my recovery. And so it was kind of this amazing blessing in disguise, because I would never have started that program if it weren't for sitting on the bike, recovering, and just talking to people. And all of a sudden the same people started showing up, and I
Yeah.
started chatting with them, and I started getting to know them. And at the end of, I feel like I did that for like 3 months. Every day I was riding the bike for an hour, and I just went live at basically the same time every day. And at the end of it, I was like, I feel like I know you guys so well. Like, would you be interested in me starting something? Because
Yeah.
I had, through that process, I was going through the TBI recovery as well. So there were
Mhm.
times where I would get on, I'd be like, hey, I'm talking right now, but I can't even track my own words. So like, I'm sorry if I'm not responding to your comments, but like, I feel so out of my mind. I'm just here to talk right now. And I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just word vomiting because I can't remember anything. I'm forgetting my memories from 5 minutes ago. So it became a big part of my healing, my own healing process. And I also have this whole life, whole different podcast, to record about my own experiences of, I've been at 18, I started going to therapy. I was abducted when I was 19. And so, in Europe, so in a foreign city,
Yeah.
fairly wild experience. So as a result, I started going to therapy like when I was pretty young, and I had this amazing therapist, who taught me meditation, took me through like intense breathing exercises. So I was like, and I worked at a facility in Mexico when I was about the same age. That's an alternative holistic medicine facility. So I also
Yeah.
got exposed to like energy medicine, and again, a lot of breath work, meditation, massage, acupuncture, all these things. It's like a young man, which
Yeah.
most 18-year-old boys are like, that's
Right.
pretty foreign to them.
Yeah.
So I've had so many experiences in this world. I was like, wow, I know a lot, and I've practiced a lot of meditation, of all of these like down regulation techniques, as well as being an intense strength and conditioning coach and a D1 athlete. Like, I've just accumulated a lot of experiences, so that kind of became my outlet for it. I can use this down regulation to my benefit. I can meditate consistently and use that as part of my recovery, and so I did.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, I remember when Kelly was you were coaching Kelly. They had, I think, once a week you had like something. I think you called it omelet hour, right? And it was like, was that
yes,
what it was called?
yeah, it was called Omelet Hour at
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
I think I changed the name eventually, but yeah, it was Omelet
yeah.
Hour.
No, where it was all, and I kind of like creeped from the background a couple of times because it was all online or whatever. Yeah, it was just like a lot of, yeah, tons of breath work and all that stuff. So it's like now, especially as I get older and like more into wellness and stuff like that, and like trying to build this whole wellness brand here in the gym. Like, it's like stuff I wish I'd have gotten into a lot, like when I was 18 or 19 years old, right? Like the benefits are so good. Like, I suffer from insomnia and a bunch of other stuff from the army, right? And like that kind of stuff is super beneficial for all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
You should, if you're interested, for anybody that's interested in like that entire world. I very much love. I still am very passionate about it, and so like I find ways to try and feed that into my own coaching, because I think it's important, right?
Yeah.
I love rowing, and I become the rowing guy, but I'm not that thin. I have like a lot more depth to my knowledge set. But this facility that I coached at, it's called Sanoviv, Sanoviv.
Okay.
I highly encourage anybody to check it out, as far as like just learning what they do and how they do it. It's pretty crazy.
Okay.
It's still in existence. It's just across the border in Mexico from San Diego. So like from my house, I think you can be there in an hour.
Wow. Okay.
It's a very cool facility. It's been around for like 25 something years, and they do a lot of really impressive work down there.
Awesome. That's good to know. If I have to like make a
Shout out
trip,
to
shout out to it, and like
throwback
maybe make a
organization.
little trip out to Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely.
So awesome. Well, I'm gonna wrap things up here. So for Dark Horse, like anyone interested, you still take clients and like have like the community and everything with Dark Horse to like to do all that the way you did before. It probably looks a lot different than it did several years ago now, right? But you want to talk about that really quick and where they
Yeah,
can find
so
you?
we're actually looking at kind of, I wound down the group that Kelly was a part of
Yeah.
a year and a half ago now. I'm looking at relaunching that in a slightly different way, doing it as more of like a cohort style, where it's like
Okay.
an 8 week. We basically like kind of take you through as much of that information as we can in 8 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's a little bit more palatable for people like yourself. You're like, I'm really interested, but there's a lot to unpack there. And also like, I don't know if this is like a 12-month thing for me, right? So like
Right.
8 weeks though, yeah, I'll sign up for like 8 weeks of learning all that. So we're talking about doing that. It's not we haven't launched that yet, but I would say we're a quarter or two out from doing that.
Okay.
Otherwise, the best place to kind of follow along with what we have going, I think one of the easiest things is if you go to the darkhorsemethod.com, we just have like a get started quickly free download. It's the easiest for people who are like, oh, let me dabble.
Yeah.
It's basically a quick start guide. Like, how do you get started on your rowing machine comfortably? Get through the early, the stuff that you just need to learn right out of the gate so that you aren't making these errors for the long road. And so that's there and free for everybody. So darkhorsemethod.com or the darkhorsemethod.com, either works.
Awesome.
And then, follow us on all the socials because that's where I like to teach.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And I'll put everything in the show notes below and tag you and all the things. But thank you so much for jumping on. I know you got a ton going on with the kids and all the stuff. So,
well, thanks for thinking of me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, like I said, if you want to learn more about Shane or Dark Horse, I'll tag him in this, and then all his information will be down in the show notes. But otherwise, thank you so much, and take it easy, man.
All right. You too. See ya.
See you. All right.